Yo, what's going on, world? It's your boy, Kuya P, a.k.a. Patrick Michael Strange of the Nerds of Color. We are back with a NOC Exclusive. And yo, I know we've been out for a minute. We came back finally with my latest NOC Exclusive interview yesterday with another fellow from Boston, Beantown, the man Lloyd Lee of Lloyd Lee Comedy. He just dropped his new comedy special on YouTube called Asian Privilege. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. And after you're done listening to that and get your laugh on, come check out my interview with my man. So now, again, we're keeping it coming because, we can't let this COVID get us down, this drama out in the world. And I actually got to attribute me coming back into this to this cat coming in because, I've been laying low. I've been depressed. I haven't actually been motivated to do much because, just with what's going on in the world. And so I can't not do it because I still love this. And there's a lot of beautiful people like this cat giving energy, positive energy to take our minds off of everything. So I got to show love to this cat. But before I bring him in, I'm going to throw some clips at you right now so you can feel this, brother. My man, Kirk Yi, a.k.a. Aztech from Hybrid Thoughts. Go check him out right now. Here we go.
If you like that raw hip hop, make some noise. Say a rock shit, you rock it, get hot shit. Heavy handed concrete skin when I rock shit. I feel like face weight, bossy out of race weight. I can rip the big shake, so it's got a safe space. Open is a text beat, easy at a check sheet. Real is a pet beat, switch metal red beat. Set CPO down, two top shell close to the belt, cold free the fire with hell bro. That's no reason, tyranny, reason. Fresh off the bone, only choice for a season. Steady from shots, from a sniper, hood, hot shot. Slung parrot glass, quill of a block. 4,080, back the page, water on the only beat. Ground, we crack the tape, so we fast on the neck. Steady set to this wood. Ass will protect when we enter the void like a kid. We the in the shit. When it comes to a battle, we still a threat. See us from the in the shadows and silhouette. We gon' hit them, we gon' rip it up and tear it down and do the set. Yeah, we the in the shit. When it comes to a battle, we still a threat. See us from the in the shadows and silhouette. We gon' hit them, we gon' get them, we gon' rip it up and tear it down and do the set.
Immigrated to the States in 1975 with hopes of new beginning and dreams of better lives. Mom and said so, the brother came a year after. A tight family, not a fucking slave to the master. Blood, sweat and years, tears run immensely. Then a few years later, birth of an MC. Yeah, youngin' in the projects, money was tight. Mom's working her ass off, making sure we eat right. Pops disappeared, but not replaced by another man. Aged him a very first visit to the motherland. Shocked at the culture, nothing to hide. Returned to the US with a new sense of pride. Knucklehead with the cheap toys, racism destroyed. Age 13, owning crafts of a b-boy. Then to the mic, take flight to new heights. With the wrong and right ignite, hip-hop saved my life and through the strife. I remain real, thoughts spilled on a page. Ain't nothing concealed, so until that one day it's done and death is home, mark my words now, I will never be a stepping stone.
All right, what you think? That is my man, Kirky. Welcome, y'all. Kirky, a.k.a. Aztech from Hybrid Thoughts. What's up, Kirk?
Peace, man. Thank you for having me, homie.
Definitely, man. Boston is represent hard, man. Y'all just bringing it, man. We all depressed out here, but y'all like, man, we ain't gonna stop. We gonna give you some positive energy to take your mind off shit, man. Thank you.
No doubt.
So for the uninitiated, y'all saw the clips. I'm gonna give a little bit of bio on this brother real quick. My man Aztech from Hybrid Thoughts is a 20-year veteran of underground hip-hop. Aztech of the Boston, Massachusetts, Japan-based hip-hop group Hybrid Thoughts has worked and shared the stage with artists such as Wu-Tang Clan, Tech Nine, Jadakiss, KRS One, Canibus, M.O.P, and many more. As of late, he has most notably appeared on several Japanese animation soundtracks such as Kekkai Sensen Kekkai Sensen and Beyond. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm terrible with that stuff. Dr. Stone on Adult Swim and Jujutsu Kaisen. Aztec has also recently been heard on several television commercials in Japan, including Disney Japan, Casio, and Panasonic. And also, I have in my notes that he has worked with Toho Animation and has done soundtracks for Blood Blockade Battlefront and a few others. But this brother has an album dropping this Monday, and you're gonna want to check it out. I'm gonna let him talk all about it. And why don't we talk a little briefly about that before we really get into it? Just a little brief intro on that new project that you have coming out on Monday.
Yeah, man. So the project dropping Monday is called Dusty Stereo 2. It's actually kind of like an homage to about 12 or 13 years ago. I dropped a mixtape called the Dusty Stereo, and this was before, streaming things existed. It was before social media was really big, so it was kind of like it was a quick mixtape that dropped just on undergroundhiphop.com back then, and
Classic.
they're obviously defunct now, but it actually like kind of pinnacled a point where like I've been doing this for 20 years, but 12 or 13 years ago when I dropped that, it kind of like pinnacled the point where like I really realized that this is kind of like what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And all these years later, I feel like my mind's kind of back at that mode of thinking, but on like a different level with doing the soundtrack stuff and all that lately. I kind of just feel like I'm on a different plane, but with the same thought. You know what I mean?
Nice. Okay. So let's get to the evolution before this project happened, and then we'll really get into
Sure.
Dirty Stereo. So, man, where are you from, bro? I saw that I already kind of said it, but let's talk about it. So, originally from Boston, born in Boston?
I was born in South Carolina, but
Oh, really? We're in South Carolina.
Beaufort, South Carolina. I was born. But I
Okay,
was
I'm from Goose Creek, North Charleston,
no
representing.
doubt, no doubt. I moved to Lynn, Massachusetts, which is right north of Boston. When I was a toddler, you know what I mean, like 2, 3 years old. So I don't really have any recollection of South Carolina at all. But
Okay.
most of my life I've been in Boston. I did travel out to Korea when I was in fourth grade. I stayed there for a while. That's where my roots are and everything. I'm Korean, so
Dope.
then back in Boston for the rest of my life. But I've done the typical artist thing of trying to go here, trying to go there, and see if anything's different, and nothing's ever really different. So always
Okay.
end up back home. You know what I mean?
Got you. So, what kind of a kid were you growing up with? What was were you into sports? Were you into music? Like, how did music come into the picture?
Well, music kind of came naturally. I mean, the neighborhood I grew up in. I mean, it's kind of like your quintessential like project kid story. But the neighborhood I grew up in, hip hop was just kind of always relevant in the neighborhood. My first like initiation into hip hop was I was a b-boy, and that kind of kicked everything off for me. But hip hop was just kind of always in my life. Like I always say, there's like a handful of things that kind of like made me who I am, and these are things that like stuck with me from childhood till now. As a grown man, and those things are hip hop, martial arts, comic books, pro wrestling, all that kind of stuff, which has stuck with me
Yo,
my entire life. You know what I mean? So.
that's me and 100, man. We would have been best of friends growing up, dog.
No doubt, no doubt. But
Okay,
yeah, I
so
mean, that
what
just
were
kind of
some of
molded
the
me.
what was can you remember the first tape you copped? What
Yep.
was the first album you copped growing
So
up?
it was given to me by my next door neighbor, this cat named Tony. He gave me the Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest, and
Nice.
that was my first cassette that I like owned myself.
Okay.
And then after that, I don't know if you remember back in the '90s, where like if you buy like a box of cereal, they'd have like the proof of purchase, and you mail it in, and they send you back something.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
aside from Tribe, I got the TKA cassette, which I don't remember TKA, but they were like an R&B / like freestyle group.
Okay.
So those were like the two first things I ever owned, and then naturally, you discover how to stick the Scotch tape on top and overdub stuff. And out here in Boston, the mainstream hip hop station out here is called 94.5, but there was this station. It was a college radio station called 88.9, and that was where I really got my dose of like what they call real hip hop. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the real stuff. First time I heard ATLians was on that station. First time I heard Wu-Tang was on that station. So that
Love it.
definitely responsible for what happened for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Love it. That was an amazing time, man. When like really hip hop came into being, man. I'll never forget that stuff.
Yeah, for sure,
So
man.
you was a b-boy, man. You was battling cats, right? You was
Yeah,
dancing and
loosely, man. I was more of like a popper than like a break dancer,
okay.
but yeah, man. I mean, it was
Did you
like
have
your
a
typical
crew?
thing. I did.
Okay.
If any of them like keep up with me, they'll love this. This was, middle school into high school. I was in a crew called the Beatmasters Alliance. That was my first hip hop crew that I was ever in. It was just a bunch of project kids breaking on cardboard outside. You know what I mean?
There we go. Love it. Yeah.
But that was the first crew. That was the first everything, man. So whether they know it or not these days, and I know these cats all kind of went different paths in life. One's like an accountant, one's one lives in like Thailand or something like that. So like things are things
Hey,
definitely.
you at least had a better name than my crew. My crew was HBP, aka Hard Brown Panoys.
Nice.
You can't really tell your daughter that. You're like, what? Hard Brown Panoy? What? Yo, so B Masters, I love it, man. I feel you. Okay, so B-boy, and then what got you into rhyming, man? So well, obviously loving you had the Tribe album. I'm sure you were a
Mhm.
Native Tongues cat. I'm sure you were into
That's
Far
yeah.
Side, all those cats,
Hmm.
man. So knowledge hip hop, that actually got me into rhyming too. I was a b-boy like you, got into rhyming, but then I most sort of got into poetry because I didn't think freestyling was where I was. I didn't think I personally was ready for it yet. So I got into spoken word and
Okay.
poetry because I also wanted to get out on them girls, bro. So
No doubt. No doubt.
I was trying to be smooth with it. Like
Yeah.
the homies, you could do that with your homies, but I was like, man, I wanted to get some girls. I want to get laid. I ain't gonna lie. But
Right.
so what was the first instant that you're like, man, I want to get into rhyming too? Like, what was the first? Do you remember your first rhyme?
I do. It's definitely relevant to the mindset I had at 13 years old. But it rhyming kind of came natural, specifically because I was such a hip hop head, and since hip hop was so relevant around me, I just kind of naturally start like listening to it every single day in my life, like every minute, every single day. Like I remember, like I'm sure like Asian families, man, churches, everything to an Asian family. But I remember being in church and you know listening to Bring the Ruckus in my headphones, and so it always just kind of naturally like was around. So naturally I started kind of putting my own words to the songs I was listening to, or first rapping along, learning how to rhythmically fit patterns and all that stuff, and then I kind of naturally just started obviously freestyling first, and attempting to enter local battles and getting destroyed because not really knowing what the hell I was doing yet, but naturally progressed into writing rhymes, to writing songs. And first like rhyme I ever wrote was your typical Asian pride rap. You know what I mean? Just and definitely not something I would do today because I don't know if you remember the whole AZN pride era.
Oh, always,
Yeah,
and I still got it deep, man. I rep heavy.
no doubt. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
But you know how the mindset was at that time. So
true.
that was like the entire. It was like a 32 bar verse. I didn't know how to write a hook. I didn't know how to write a bridge or anything. It was just like long.
Run-ons.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so well, with that being said, because again, to me, music is everyone's culture, but hip hop is everyone's culture, but it was created in the Bronx that
For sure.
that most people show love to, and it's representative of Black culture, but it has grown, but people forget that Puerto Ricans out in the Bronx also were there contributing, as is
Hmm.
Asians as well. But really though, mad love to our African American brothers and
Yeah,
sisters
man.
that started this movement. But so with that being said, with it being synonymous in that respect, and I know, and I can speak for myself, as Asians growing up, that
Hmm.
how you still have those closet-minded older Asians that would
Oh
be
yeah,
like, you know, that's Black people. Why are you doing that? And just all that kind of shit. Just
absolutely.
very close-minded.
Hmm.
Did you ever encounter that? And do you want to speak on that at all? And just
Yeah,
how
for
you kind
sure,
of
man.
grew up out of that
For sure, man.
mindset and it, attacking that mentality.
Yeah, I think you know, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place that was very mixed. I mean, as far as like the neighborhood I grew up in, there was a lot of, on the East Coast, a lot of Dominicans, a lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Black people. And the neighborhood I actually lived in, we were actually only one of two Asian families in the entire neighborhood. So I kind of naturally, almost identified at first. My Asian pride didn't really like blossom until I was older, until I was in high school, and I learned more. I learned more about like what my mom went through and everything too, and that kind of obviously instilled a ton of Asian pride in me. But growing up, I always kind of identified more with the people that were around me, and I think that's kind of naturally why I bled into this culture the way it was. But you have your typical just ignorance. You know what I mean? When I went to functions outside of the neighborhood, like oh, why does Kirk think he's black, or why does this happen? I kind of naturally learned to deal with that in a way. I don't know, man. Like I don't want to like say I was fully aware at an early age, but for some reason I always knew what I was doing was just who I was, and the respect was always there as far as like within myself and the people I considered family. I don't even just mean blood. I mean like you know the people I was around, my brothers, and I'm once again fortunate enough that like my immediate family specifically was always supportive. For the most part, there was obviously stints, with you know like, is this really what you're gonna do forever? Like, are you really
Yeah.
like going down this road? Is this what you're gonna? And and now as a grown older man, it's still happening. So I think they all kind of have pride in that as well. That it's especially in any kind of art form, man. It's not. It's always going to be respectable that someone kind of goes full force and dedicates their entire life. Like I've been doing hip hop for 3/4 of my life, so like I think that's kind of self-explanatory that
Yeah.
that's just kind of a natural of my being. You know what I mean?
So let's flip that. So I was kind of focused on the negative things that might have occurred. What were some of the beautiful things that you experienced that further ingrained your love for hip hop growing up, coming up? So we started with like you got into rhyming, well b-boy into rhyming,
Hmm.
and then growing up getting into hip hop. What are some of the few things that you've like encountered in relationship and as a person wise that you learned
Yeah,
encountering others and going around and meeting other cats?
for sure, man. There's like one specific story that I do like to tell about that, and so hip hop as a culture, MCing, b-boy, and graffiti art, all that. Um, Obviously, when I started, I was young, so at first, all it was to me was just rap music. Rapping. I can rap. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be the cool kid that raps and all this stuff. And then, but you know, I started b-boying before rhyming, but briefly after rhyming, before I started recording, I got back into the b-boy scene. Not so much competing or breaking myself, but I became homies, real close homies with this b-boy crew from where I'm from in Lynn, Mass. And we at one point, I forget the year, man. I think it was the tail end of the '90s. We went to this b-boy competition in Providence, and it was one of those like multi-day events. And we didn't know that yet. None of us drove. None of us did any of this. So we all kind of just streamlined it to Providence from Mass, and we didn't have anywhere to stay. So after the day one of the event ended, we there was this park down the street, and we're like, fuck it, let's just sleep in the park. We'll get up early, and around like 1 a.m., this big dude, bunch of tats and dreads, walks up to us. He's like, "You guys b-boys?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, then you're not sleeping outside." And he brings us back to his crib, and this ends up being a Zulu king from the Zulu Nation, this cat named Poem. Shout out to
Wow.
Poem. And this was kind of the night that I really like learned the culture like within, because he brought us into his home, broke bread with us all night, and just spoke on the history, spoke on everything. From the he was at the original jam that Herc did, and then
Wow.
just everything. He kind of like, and then we were five Asian kids that really didn't know about the history to that level. As far as like we've been listening to hip hop our whole lives, but as far as like the foundation and all that stuff, man, like he really dropped so much knowledge on us that night. And we woke up, he was gone already. We left him a note and everything. But like from that moment on, is when my life was about the culture as a whole rather than just like rapping or being a rapper or just being a guy that breakdances, you know. And crazy thing is that guy probably has no idea the impact he had on me and us, you know. All of them, because that whole they still b-boy, they're all around still, but
So
you know, the impact that he probably has no idea. But that night like completely changed my life, you know.
amazing.
Yeah.
So do you remember your first battle?
MC battle?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or b-boy battle? But either or.
Yeah, b-boy battle. I mean, both of my first b-boy and MC battle got destroyed. But you know,
But you gotta catch wreck
that's
in order
natural.
to
But
get that
yeah,
drive. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get low before you get high.
yeah, absolutely. B-boying, I didn't battle all that much. You know, because my timeline as a b-boy was pretty limited as far as like being like a serious b-boy. You know, but battling is how I started, man. Freestyle battling is, you know, this is obviously I became involved in the written era of battle rap, which we can talk about after. But this is back in like the freestyle battle era where like, you know, you didn't know who you were battling, you didn't, you know, have time to prepare. It's just you got to be witty and sharp. You can have little rebuttals stashed away, but you
Punchlines,
know,
yeah.
there used to be this event in Boston called Critical Breakdown. And it was a monthly event where there was MC battles and an open mic, and I would go every time. But like, it took me about 3 or 4 times of going to actually enter the MC battle, and I did. And um, that was the first like sanctioned battle, like the first actual like battle I was in school. It was this cat named Akeem that I went to school with, and you know, he was just he didn't try to make music or anything, but he was just one of those guys that was just so naturally like gifted off the top and
Okay.
mop the floor with me. But that you know, that completely was like, all right, now I gotta be like,
Yeah.
there's certain things I have to have, like the wittiness and the sharpness, and not just be able to rap. That's not enough, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But back to Critical Breakdown, I entered like my 3rd or 4th time there, and I made it to the semifinals, which was hard, further than I ever thought I would make it. And then
Yeah.
you know, the first full like tournament battle that I won was a MC battle called True Colors. There was 12 MCs, and I ended up coming out on top there. But that was the first time. And you know, freestyle battles, you'd always just back then you would find a battle going on, you'd enter. You know, I met a lot of dope people throughout that lineage, you know, of the freestyle battle era, like cats who ended up going on to, you know, be, you know, stars and, you know, underground idols and things like that, man. And that era of like that, like the freestyle battle era, man, is I think it's a something that doesn't get talked about enough because there's such a like I remember you remember Scribble Jam?
Oh yes, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that whole era, man, is like there was such a tight knit community that
Mm-hmm.
was almost like a subgenre of underground hip hop, you know, because
Yeah.
you had which ended up turning into other things, which eventually turned into what it is now. You know, that all kind of stemmed from that era and that group of people, you know. But that was one of my favorite times in hip hop was that freestyle battle era. You know, even if you know I wasn't winning or being a champion, just being involved and being around and knowing the people in that and everything definitely like shaped me being in a scene for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do you prepare? How do you write? How do you get in, how do you, you know, come up with your rhymes, your lyrics? I'm sure listen to tracks and lyricists that you idolize and peep, but then you want to create your own. How do you make, you know, tracks your own and the vibe or the message you want to speak and put out there? Because you come from that knowledge hip hop era like I'm from, where you
Okay.
know there was a message in that. Now we got a bunch of ringtone rappers. I'm not gonna crap on a lot of these new cats, but you
Right.
know I really have a hard time listening to these guys.
I feel
There's a couple winners out there. There's a
you.
couple lyricists out there, but you know it's a different era. You know what I'm saying? And respect. You know I ain't gonna talk too bad about the era. It's for these cats. It's for this generation. It's not my generation.
Right,
So
exactly. That's all
for
it is.
you in that generation, how did you come up and when you would get into writer's block or whatever, you know, what did you do? Let's talk on your creative process.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I think it all kind of just stems from like I was a very like I was a quiet kid, you know, and when as cliche as it sounds, when I found like hip hop, it finally gave me like an outlet. So like I always just kind of took whatever was happening in my life, and even if I didn't write exactly about what was happening in my life, it definitely influenced the urge to write and express myself in some way. Like if I was mad, I would write something, like that. Or if I was, falling in love with a girl, I would end up writing about that. You know what I mean? So it all just kind of, and even now, like as a grown man, still doing this, like it always stems from emotions. Like I've kind of shifted into the whole like kind of abstract, kind of weird lyrics sometimes, but that still kind of stems from like what I do in my personal life and what I'm into and my mind's at. So like writer's block happens to everybody, definitely. But I've learned now to not try to force it, like specifically, like for example, when like someone hits me up for a collab or something, and I know I'm not in that mindset, I respectfully tell them like, let me get back to you when I know I can deliver. You know what I mean? Um, I don't want to force it because I've done that in the past, and there's unfortunately like full albums that I've put out that I'm so unhappy with because every time I listen to that, like even if the your average listener doesn't hear that it's forced, but like me remembering where my mind was at the time and remembering and just listening to that, like, oh, this is terrible, man. Like I hate it. And I've taken those instances and kind of learned from that, and just let things happen naturally. That's both with my group and solo. Because I'm sure you're in a group in a form. So like sometimes it's hard to be in a group where everyone has to be on the same page at the same time. And I love my brothers and my sisters. They we've never really. The crazy thing is like groups that have been together that long, you typically hear about fall. We've never had like a big falling out like
Yeah.
that. We've never had like an inner war with each other or anything like that. I think because we've all just respected each other enough, and we've all kind of been able to branch off and do our own things as well. So it's just it's so as far as the creative process, man, it's just more of like I try to let that naturally happen,
Okay.
rather than like try to you know, make a certain graph or a grid of how I want to write or do this. It just kind of naturally happens. Which in turn, like, learning how to count bars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that came way later to me, like way
Okay.
later. Only when like I started working with actual producers and they're like, no, you need
Yeah.
a 16. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm just gonna rap, until the beat
Yeah.
changes. But yeah, I mean, where I am now, like I'm the most comfortable I've ever been as far as the creative process goes.
Okay. So let's talk about introducing your Korean culture into hip hop,
Mhm.
and because you have that pride there as well. Um, how I know for myself, and actually, I'm getting ready to launch a new podcast on the Nerds of Color. Y'all heard it. Well, you heard it yesterday, but you're hearing it again. Coming soon, the Show Pal Show.
Dope.
Um, but basically, I'm Filipino American,
Mhm.
born and raised in America. But just I don't know too much about the Philippines. You know what I'm saying? I've
Right.
done my best to read books and educate myself and catch films and just learn about the culture. But we were being born and raised. You have to grow up and learn American culture. Then
Yeah,
you come to find
absolutely.
out how fucked up it is and all that. But I ain't gonna go
Yeah.
there. I ain't gonna bring my politics. 'Cause, again, I'm so mad at the world and this
Right,
orange
right.
motherfucker we have in the
Yeah,
office.
we all are, man.
So, but yeah, man. So I got again deep pride. Once you find out, I'm sure. I was speaking for myself. Go up in America, learning how fucked up this is, and then learning about the beauty of this other culture that you have within you.
Mhm.
But then you don't get it in school, and so you have to seek it out. But it's very difficult to seek it out. How about? I'm curious if that was your same journey as well, and learning about that, and then wanting to put that into the creative energy that you're doing. Because I find myself doing that, and that's actually what I have again coming up soon with the Knock. I'm going to launch a Filipino pop culture podcast on the Knock very soon. So if you could do, tell me as well as how you've gone about doing it within your music and or life in general.
Yeah, for sure, man. So like I said, like my first rhyme I ever wrote was about Asian pride, but it was in a different aspect. It was more like the street shit, like the being a hood Asian kid and like because that was never represented in the mainstream or anything like that, except for shout out to the homie Dante Bosco. He was the first hood Asian I ever saw on TV.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. My dude.
But yeah, man. I mean, that definitely is something that progressed over time. You know, then there was a time where I didn't talk about my culture at all in music. It was just battle raps and writing about different things. I found Canibus and he made me write all scientific and all this stuff. But uh, as I learned more about like my lineage, I mean, I to be honest, I learned more about my Korean heritage after I was there when I came home because I won't get into like my mom's story, but my mom has a very very intense, crazy story about like what she went through during the times of the Korean War, coming to America and everything, and learning her story is really what gave me my pride. And I started talking to her more about our family's lineage, and come to find out, I'm related 6 generations up to King Sejong, who was the king in Korea that created the Korean alphabet. So
Wow.
I almost took that as like a, like an ode, like I'm meant to write, I'm meant to deliver a message and all this stuff. And
Hmm.
from then on, man, like I just that kind of like I wouldn't say is the main basis of my music, but you'll hear it in almost every song I do. There's some kind of a nod there, even like for a brief period of time, uh, I added my actual last name to my rap name just so people would know I was Korean because I got that look where I can kind of pass for a bunch of different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was kind of curious until I saw a video and you said that you were Korean, and I was like, "Word, okay, that's why
Yeah,
he's down with the Nerds of Color too." He not that you know what I'm saying, but yeah,
no, I
I
feel you.
got that love, but I wasn't sure. It wasn't sure. You never know.
No, no, sure. And the reason being because I am technically mixed, but I was raised by a single Korean mother in a Korean home with
Hmm.
Korean customs. So I'm Korean whole and whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, I added my name to that so people would know it was Korean, and then I just started talking about it. And then last year, actually in October, I dropped a release that was only available on vinyl, and I named it the South Gate, which is the structure in South Korea, which is close to where King Sejong statue is and everything there. So
Hmm.
I that's will forever be relevant to me now, like knowing that I have that rich of a culture and that rich of a history. I can't let that slide, especially like looking towards like future generations, man. Like if I don't carry that on, I don't want it to dissipate, especially like my Korean family is still all in Korea, and I unfortunately don't have too much contact with them. But over here in America, I feel like I like sincerely like have a responsibility to like carry that tradition on, for the sake of my mother, for the sake of my family in general.
Feel you. Okay, love it, man. So we went talk about b-boying to becoming a rapper, an artist, and then we talk about creative process and mixing the culture. Let's talk about how did Hybrid Thoughts form. I think you're with a cat named Casper.
Yeah,
That's your partner.
that's my homie. So Hybrid Thoughts, there's a core group of members, and then
Okay.
in Japan we're kind of promoted as like a collective, kind of like a native tongues type thing.
Dope.
But the core members of the group that live here in Boston are it's me, my homie Casper, my homie Paranom, and the singer Saucy Lady, and my homie Yuki, who handles all the production. That's like the core group. Like if you came to Boston and saw us live, that's who you would see specifically. Or if you saw us on tour, that's who you would see.
Okay.
But Hybrid Thoughts I originally created Hybrid Thoughts in 1998 or 1999, one of the two. It was actually the first group that I ever formed. It wasn't the same exact members as it is now, but I was
Hmm.
always kind of like the nucleus. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And then I branched off and I joined other groups for a while. I did my solo thing for a while, and then I ended up bringing Hybrid Thoughts back with Casper at first, and then naturally Cats I was working with kind of ended up jumping on the ship, and Hybrid Thoughts still running strong today. We our last release that we had as a group was in 2017. We will have one out like first quarter 2021. But 2017 was also our first time releasing something exclusively in another country, because we released it with a Japanese label,
Wow.
which is kind of how we ended up being like also based out there. And two of our members were actually originally from out there. They live now though. But yeah, Hybrid Thoughts is that's still my core, man. Like it always will be. So that's why
what was about So what was it about each member that you formed this nucleus? Because like the tribe, native tongues, there's like distinctness to each one.
Yeah, for sure.
Like what was it that did y'all rhyme the same or had the same kind of message? What's the beauty? Give me more about the beauty of each member.
Yeah,
Let's talk about some of those cats within the group.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk about Cass because he's like the original like right hand man. It was actually kind of the opposite because we were so different. That is what kind of drove like the name hybrid. Two different things forming one.
Yeah.
I was always more of that like kind of conscious native tongues, jazzy type kind of dude, and Casper was a straight punchline, monster, you know what I mean? Just diss the shit out of you and and that's it, but
Gotcha.
And then the rest of us, man, like there's definitely like the group we have now I'm so proud of because of like mainly because of the live show that we can put on. We have me and Cass obviously rapping, then my man Paranom, who's definitely a very, very conscious, very smooth. Like you hear the term like in the pocket, like he kind of defines that. He's always in pocket. Saucy she's a singer slash DJ. Her background is more based in disco and funk, so she kind of brings that naturally to it. And Yuki, our producer, is a master, plays 36 instruments, so like that'll tell you in general.
Yeah,
he's one of those crazy Japanese masterminds with the instruments. You know what I mean?
So you guys will really put on a show, and I think, I heard you made a comment in another interview. There's a lot of these cats that are, making millions, but they can't even put on a fucking show. They may have a couple of tracks that they, you bump it on, but live, man, please. You know what I'm saying? So I really respect that you have this nucleus of performers, because that's the, there's one thing about the radio, okay, and no shame on that game. They're making their money. I'm gonna sleep on them. They're making their money, but putting on a performance, man, if you can't come with it, bro, why are you on the stage?
I mean, there's been unfortunately numerous times where like I've seen someone that I'm such a fan of, then I see them live, and like every time I go to listen to them after that, all I can think of is how bad their live show was, and it's hard to even listen to them after that. You know what I mean?
True.
Unfortunately, but and also like in hip hop, man, if you come from like the culture as we do, MC, you're a master of ceremonies, man. Like your main job is to control the crowd, be able to control the crowd, and if you can't do that, like, can you really call yourself an MC? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little pompous, but it's kind of the truth,
Hey, hey, but that's the part of the ego, the part of the flair of the culture, and part, that's hip hop. That's hip hop.
It's natural.
Yeah. So I had something on. Let me because I started losing it, but there was something I had on there. Anime. Oh yeah. So you because you're kind of dual hatted, being in Boston and as well as in Japan. So how did this whole jumping off into anime form with you working on tracks for Dr. Stone, Blood, Blockade, Battlefront, and Kekkai Sensen and all that?
So that was like completely unexpected. I mean, gracious for it because I've been an anime fan since I was a child.
Word. Okay.
But so in 2017, Hybrid Thoughts put that album out in Japan, and that was like our first introduction to like a Japanese audience. And from that, we kind of caught the ear of a few people, and our producer ended up he gets jobs for a lot of Japanese television, which is kind of how it like naturally happens. But at the first show we ended up being on was Blood Blockade Battlefront, and they just called for like a boom bap hip hop track, and they hit up Yuki, and he called. It was myself and Paranom for this one. We went down there, recorded it, and it ended up on the soundtrack. It actually was on the first episode of the season, and it automatically kind of like caught fire. Like everyone's like, Well, it's just good hip hop on. Anime and like hip hop has always kind of had like a relationship.
Yeah,
And so like hearing that, but this was somebody these anime fans hadn't heard yet, so it kind of like caught fire, and then you know, then we ended up. I thought that was gonna be it. I was like, this is cool, man. I'll take this. I
yeah,
saw some numbers out of it and everything, and that was cool. And then we got the call for Dr. Stone, which was definitely like a bigger deal. Dr. Stone ended up like really blowing up and going on Adult Swim and everything.
okay,
Um, we got the call there, and this time the production team from Japan flew in for this, and we recorded like 5 tracks for that soundtrack, and that you know caught even more fire. And you know, I slowly saw like the shift, and like maybe I'll be doing this for a bit now. You know what I mean? And then recently, like in the past, since like COVID happened, uh,
hmm,
I've it's crazy the amount of soundtrack work I've gotten since then. Jujutsu Kaisen comes out in October 2nd. Hybrid Thoughts as a whole did a bunch of stuff for that. Uh, then we got Doctor Stone season 2, which we just recorded some more stuff for. That comes out in January, and the dopest one, man, is not dopest, but biggest surprise was I ended up doing a song for the show Beastars, which is on Netflix.
yeah,
Season 2, I did like a solo track for, and I went in there thinking it was for something completely different.
yeah,
Like, oh, this is for a Netflix series. I was like, oh, cool. And then apparently I found a Jujutsu Kaisen's coming out on Netflix as well. So, um, it's like doing it as long as I've been. You never expect to kind of go down certain avenues, but I'm definitely
yeah,
not. You know what I mean? It's definitely
yeah,
as someone in this day and age, at my age, still doing hip hop, like
hmm,
finding any kind of resurgence to like put me in more of like a mainstream eye is crazy to even hear. Especially doing hip hop that's not quote unquote mainstream appealing anymore, but
hmm.
finding a lane for that to get on mainstream things like Netflix and things like that, it's pretty crazy. So I'm not mad at it at all. You know what I mean?
I think it's super dope, bro. Um, I'm curious. So how taking from the hip hop you were doing to then how does it work doing even though that anime has kind of mixed it? Do they kind of give you any ground rules parameters, or are you allowed to just
Uh,
are they looking for something specific when they bring you on to say B stars or whatever?
mhm.
Do they just let you do your thing, or they like, hey, we want you to maybe talk about this? Do they give you like, how do you write to that, like, hey,
Yeah,
this episode's about this, and maybe if you can theme it to this, you know what I'm saying?
right.
What is that process in that regard?
It's kind of a mix of both. There's definitely like a need to kind of make sense with the episode of the show and all that stuff, but sometimes they don't even really care. They just like if they wanted like a 90s hip hop song, like just do what you do, But
Nice.
sometimes it can get difficult because like I don't know if you've heard the Dr. Stone soundtrack, but most of that was not like hip hop beats. It wasn't hip hop at all. So
Mm.
it gets challenging to like do what I do. I'm a 90s hip hop head, so like I'm based on rhythm, the drum and the kick. And when
Yeah.
you have like to rap over an orchestra or something like that, which is amazing, the fact that I'm able to do that, uh but it's super like it becomes challenging. And then not only that, but like at a lot of these sessions you're like kind of put on the spot, like you have a deadline, like we have to finish this by 8 p.m. So it's
Yeah.
like you kind of rush to find stuff, and then sometimes it works beautifully.
So it's like your producer cat bringing you instrumentals already off the rip,
Yeah, exactly.
or are you
They're like
working together with him as he's dropping the instrumental together?
well, no, so like the usually the score of the show is
Yeah.
already right.
Okay.
So they'll give me pieces of that score, like fit something in
Copy.
here, fit something in here. And like that's where both becomes like, and this is also where I have to let go of my ego sometimes, because as someone who makes my own music, I always have the privilege of, I don't let that erase it. you know this these things, that it's not really my call. It's not really, I mean, it's my call whether I like it or not, but like it's not really like what I want. It's what they want. So if they like it, that's it. Which I'm actually appreciative of, because I'll be in the studio for 12 hours because I'm a perfectionist, so like I won't want to put anything out. But like
Yeah.
and it becomes super challenging. But like it ends up working out as well. Like probably my most like well-known like track that I'm on is from an anime soundtrack now, obviously, and it's something I never would have done on my own. You know what I mean? It's the track called "I'm a Human," which was on the Dr. Stone soundtrack, and it's definitely nothing I would have done like ever. But the funny thing is that it also kind of for certain tracks on this album I'm dropping, like it completely shifted. Like maybe I should try this kind of stuff on my own if people like it so much. You know what I mean? And so like which was more of like a not rhythmic, but more of like a spoken word kind of approach where like I've always had kind of more of a poetic way of writing. So like it's like maybe this is something new I can try out now. And there's a couple tracks in the new album where I test that theory out. So we'll see how it goes, you know. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm beyond thankful for being involved in anime soundtracks, man. Toho Animation is giving me like a resurgence in life, man, with doing this stuff. So
Love it.
definitely thankful.
So it works into you being a nerd. So like you were saying, you're old head, anime head. Let's talk about, I guess, the weirdo, because that's what, some people say you the weirdo. And I think I saw in some interviews is because you're a 90s cat. And we've already discussed 90s hip hop. It's one of the greatest generations of hip hop. So
Yeah,
we don't even need to clarify. If they don't know, they don't know. But let's get into the weird. Let's get into the nerddom side of it. What do you? So what kind of comics were you peeping? What kind of animes were you enjoying? Let's talk. Have a little fun talk on that
Yeah,
kind of
sure, man.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite heroes and all that.
Yeah.
Villains.
I mean, dude, nerd culture is my life, bro. Like now, forever, from childhood to being a grown man. Like
Yeah.
I annoy the hell out of my wife sometimes. I still got action figures all over my house. You know what I mean?
Bro, you see
Yeah,
what
I
my
know.
wife lets me get down
I make
with.
it comfortable right away, man.
We get paid for it now. So hey.
Yeah, that exactly. But I mean, comics, man. Shoot, everything, dude. I mean,
Marvel cat, DC cat.
Marvel. I'm a Marvel cat, but I will say, like, I know there's always that like stigma where, like, you know, DC's the cheesy stuff, Marvel's the dope badass stuff. But like, there's been plenty of DC joints that I've been big into. You know, Green Arrow was dope to me. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I was definitely a Marvel cat. But I remember like the first comic that I like rushed out to get, well, I had comics prior to this, like plenty of comics, but like the first one I remember like rushing to get was the Death of Superman, which is a DC comic. You know, when Doomsday killed him, you know what I mean? Like
you had to get that black bag,
yeah, exactly.
poly bag Superman joint.
And then the Back to Life joint too, you know.
Yeah.
But I was big into X-Men, still am. You know.
Okay.
Deadpool was big into, like early Deadpool, you know. You know, comics, I mean, in this day and age, man, my favorite thing to do in a comic shop now is to dig through those dollar bins and grab those random one-shot comics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially like when I'm going to the studio or I'm going here and there, like take a one-shot comic, kind of read it, or like when they do like the zero issue like test runs or whatever. I love reading those. I love looking for those, man.
Yeah.
You know, I'll hang out there all day. Graphic novels, you know what I mean? I'll always look for those too.
Okay.
You know, yeah, comics is, I mean, like.
So when you cracking open those old floppies, man, do you smell the paper?
Oh yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I attribute that to something like record digging. It's the same thing, you know what I mean? Like it's the thrill of the find, you know.
Yeah.
The thrill of, I'll be at flea markets every weekend for the rest of my life looking for comics and records, man, you know, and action figures and all that stuff, man. Like that's.
You have any favorite creators, artists, writers that you followed and would get that album not because it was Spider-Man, but because you knew, say, Todd McFarlane was working on that particular issue?
Yeah, I mean, I am actually a big fan of Todd. I'm also, obviously Jack Kirby. Speaking of like digging through those dollar bins, I found what was it called? Kirby Genesis. I found, and it was like,
nice.
It was something random that I just grabbed, and it got to the point where like I started reading one, and then those are hard to find because you have to look in the bargain bins for those things, and then I ended up just going online and finding them all. Going through the whole series, man. Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, dude, like artists and writers, man. I just like the amount of respect I have for them is probably like unparalleled to anybody, man. Like just to be able to create a whole nother world like that, and to have, you know, legions of people like following that world and like bringing me out of my, you know, reality into that reality, man. Like
Yeah.
that's something I'll always kind of cherish, man. And that's why I think, you know, comics and like nerd culture in general is so like relevant to me, whether it's, you know, comics, anime, you know, like I said, pro wrestling. I've been into that my whole life, man. So like,
Oh yeah, who are some of your favorite wrestlers? I remember you said that. Yeah, who you catch? Were you wanted? Even though '80s, and when you look back at it now, and a lot of cats kind of upset me. Like I was a big Hogan cat, but then when you turned into find out what he was really thinking
oh
about
god,
certain
yeah, no,
cats,
I feel you,
that
man.
pissed me off.
Yeah,
And
same.
I was a big Warrior guy, but then he turned into something. You know, it's all problematic now. But at the same time, during that period, not knowing what they were gonna be, I fucking
Exactly,
love that shit, man.
exactly.
And as problematic as it was dope as hell to see the Twin Towers. I'm like, man,
Yeah,
that was representation. Even though it was stereotypical representation, it was representation nonetheless. And I was all for it. You know,
yeah, for sure, man.
who's some of those cats you were into back in the day?
Number one would probably be the Great Muda. That was my guy.
Yeah,
You
baby.
know, everybody. Yeah, I was a Warrior guy. I think, you know, mainly what about Warrior was I love just those interviews, man. Like even though they didn't make any sense, man, he was going off into a different space, man, and I always loved
Yeah.
that. You know, I feel bad for my mother, like walking in the room and I'm watching this crazy muscled up guy with paint on his face screaming. You know what I mean? But you know, look at my actions up here. Legion of Doom, I was big into, man. Ric Flair, you know,
Yeah.
all the classics, man. You
Okay.
know, also too like underground guys. Not underground, but like, you know, the mid card guys. I was always
Yeah.
into. I was always a fan of the mid card guys, like,
Yeah.
you know, D'Lo Brown, guys like that. You know,
Yeah.
I was always into that stuff, man. I was always a fan of like the non popular guy. You know,
Yeah. Same. Same.
you know, always
Coco Beware never got a
same.
lot of love like that. I thought. You know.
One of my first memories, like in general, that I can remember watching was Coco Beware was Big Boss Man in SummerSlam. That was like one of my first memories as a child that I remember even like watching at all. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, all that stuff, man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like shaped my whole like personality. I mean, even some of my homies don't get it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some of them do.
Nah, I feel you, man. There's people just like you on the other side of this camera right now that's just like
Right.
you, man. It's all love, man. That's
No
that's
doubt.
that stuff's beautiful. So the weirdo is now dropping this album on Monday. Let's get a bit more again into it. Dirty Stereo #2. So
Dusty
is this
Stereo, yeah.
consisting of some stuff maybe that you didn't use on the anime or some of that stuff? What is all in this in Dirty Stereo 2?
Well, I wouldn't say stuff that was not used that, but there was definitely so it actually started I got the urge and the like I said, it like kind of represents where my mind is at, like back where it was when I dropped the first one. And it's kind of started with like there was a few joints that I had recorded like right before you know, COVID broke out. And they were really dope, and I really kind of used that as like a jump point to like, all right, let's just turn this into a whole album, to a whole project. And I ended up getting the verse from Canibus, which ended up kind of making me more inclined to finish a project. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, I guess you could kind of compare it to my past projects where it's still like hip hop, it's still, you know, underground, dusty hip hop. You know what I mean? But like I said, there's new kind of little slivers in there where I'm, you know, testing some new stuff out. And it's more of like, I feel like this is more of a statement of like, you know, I've always done. I there was a point in time where I got pigeonholed as like that, which is not a bad thing to be pigeonholed as, but
Yeah.
like the culture guy, like the hip hop guy, you know. He's
Yeah.
the Asian KRS One, everybody says, you know what I mean, things like that. But
Yeah.
you know, this is me not breaking out of that because I will always be that. But
Mm-hmm.
this is me kind of making a statement. Specifically, like the last track on this is, it's honestly not a hip hop track at all. It's me doing spoken word over dark ambient. It's
Nice.
and it's not even like really like it's spoken word, but it's more like I kind of took like Buddhism translations and kind of shifted them into like English,
Dope.
you know, and did them over a dark ambient track. That's tribute to my man Mindspawn, is who I put that vinyl out with last year. He's kind of
Dope.
helped kind of explore a whole another world, you know. You know, it's just like we said earlier, it's finding new ways to kind of keep you know, keep interest in making my own music, man. You know, and the anime stuff obviously like was a big reason too, because now getting, you know, more notoriety once again. You know, it's, you know, time to drop a project. You know, and as far as like I also, I mean, with the exception of Canibus, who I've, you know, I've spent time with and I've, you know, done shows with him and everything, but
Mhm.
with the exception of him, like all the features and the production is all from like my tight like circle of homies. You know what I mean? Like
Nice.
I didn't really reach out. Like I was always kind of a guy who reached out like to different random people to collab and do things like that. This time I really wanted to keep it like, since it was so personal and so like me making the statement of like my mind's back in the right place. I wanted to have obviously people I love on the
Yeah.
project with me. So it's all just my crew, Hybrid Thoughts, my fellow Korean MC, Slant Headshots, man, he's on there with me. And
Nice.
productions from all homies, Mindspawn, Cloak and Dagger, P-Ro. It's all like the people that like I actually spend
Yeah.
time with in life, you know, and like they know me as, you know, Kirk rather than Aztec, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, so that definitely helped shape the overall sound of it, man. And I'm happy with it. You know, it started out as just like, maybe I'll put something together and throw it out during COVID since I'm home. You know what I mean? But it turned
Yeah.
into like me actually like taking it serious and turning it into an actual album. So I'm definitely happy with it.
So I got to give you props creating this album during this COVID era, you know,
Yeah,
right now. So from what you just said, I would think that the most rewarding thing about this putting together this project was that you collaborated with people that are close to you,
yeah,
friends and families and colleagues. So then on the flip end side of it, um, I guess to just add to show how people can overcome things, and that's what to me you're doing with this album, and to us it would by inspiring us by dropping an album at this time is what was the most difficult thing to put together this album during this time period, and overcoming that.
yeah. I mean, I think it was the most difficult was obviously, you know, like, you know, people think what they want to think about the virus, whether it's, you know, fabricated, whether it's media, whether it's, you know, we can have our beliefs about that, but like in general, man, like when it first hit, like none of us knew anything. You know what I mean? So like it was everyone just staying in their home and not knowing what to do. And the hardest part, like, so that's when I made the decision to do this. And the hardest part about that was just, you know, bringing my people together. But like it gradually just ended up being spending time with the people I love, my family, and you know, we're all artists. We all do this, so it kind of naturally buds out. So it ended up being actually one of the less, to be honest, one of the less difficult projects I've done in that aspect, because we've all just, you know, we're not doing shows, we're not touring, we're not doing any of this. So we have a lot of time to just kind of put heads together and make, you know, make music, make art, man. You know, there's been projects in the past where they've been impossible to finish because I get dragged in so many different directions. What's going on, whether it's shows, whether it's, you know, something in personal life, you know, like during this time, all that's existed is the virus. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and obviously, you know, everything going on as far as injustice goes, which is obviously going to fuel me to create art even more. You know, it actually, to be honest, kind of made it a little easier for me to do. You know, I had a lot of motivation in my head a lot now, you know, because I'm home so much, and you know, being in your head, you know, things swirl around, and I take those swirls and I throw them on a track, and it kind of naturally happens, man. So
Beautiful. So let's tell everybody how they can cop this album. Let's throw all that information out there, and as you
yeah,
said, I'm gonna
sure.
throw it onto the screen so people can know where to go, and also how to follow you, and all that,
Mhm.
and for future reference.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be available on all streaming platforms. You know, your typical iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, all that stuff. It's the Dusty Stereo 2. On Spotify, search Aztec from Hybrid Thoughts is what I'm listed on as Spotify, and you'll catch everything as far as my personal releases to the anime stuff is all linked to that name, Aztec from Hybrid Thoughts. Um, yeah, keep up with me on Instagram if you want. It's Aztech Yi on Instagram, AZTECHYI. Um, yeah, pretty easy to find, man. You know,
So
just look it up, man. It'll be out there, man. your usual underground hip hop blogs. I'm sure we'll have some stuff to say and stuff. So we'll see how it goes, man.
Okay. So we got that this is your album dropping on Monday, and then you said in 2021, you Hybrid Thoughts is dropping.
We're hoping to, yeah.
Okay.
We're in a group, so it's tough to really
True.
make that call, but
okay.
But we're hoping to, man. We've been, doing these anime soundtracks has brought us back in the studio together. So it'll naturally, kind of take hold. So
okay.
We'll see.
And
you said in October some of the animes that you will be dropping.
October 2nd, Jujutsu Kaisen comes out on Netflix Japan out there, but it also will be on Crunchyroll for American audiences to stream. And then I believe in January, Dr. Stone Season 2 comes out.
Nice.
And in January, Beastar Season 2 will come out on Crunchyroll, but it will be on Netflix US, I believe, in April. So that'll be the whole, first quarter of the year. So we'll see, man.
All right, man. Well, I'm hyped, bro. And I just want to thank you again. As we started off earlier and a little bit before we got together on this interview, man, you kicked me in the pants to get rolling. By this time of the year, I would already probably done over 200 interviews by now. But you were going to be my first of this year, but you're my second because we got the other Boston cast representing Boston. Shout out to Boston. Y'all killing the game right now. Y'all doing it big. Y'all are inspiring us right now. And I want to thank you for that inspiration because, again, with the tumultuous time period we're living in right now, it's hard to get motivated and create. And seeing cats like you and others coming out here with projects, not, getting, lazy, some parts I'm getting, got lazy and just depressed, but just helping rising above that and giving us motivation, man. It means a lot. So from me to you, thank you, sir. I truly appreciate you for that inspiration and representing old school hip hop, representing Asian pride, man. I just love it. I can't wait to have you on again if you're down to
Anytime, man.
Let us know about your other projects because I want to show love to that, man. And just really appreciate you, man, coming on, dog.
Yeah, anytime, man. You know what? I do want to shout out. I found you guys because my wife's homegirl actually hit me to you guys. So shout out to Senpai Steph, man. She linked me to your page, and that's my size. I was like, this is dope, man. I need to hit these guys up. So
okay, love it, man. Shout out to you, Senpai Steph. Appreciate you. Love it. All right, so let me wind it down and say again to everybody, go check out my man Kirk Yi, aka Aztech from Hybrid Thoughts, especially this Monday as he drops the Dirty Stereo Volume 2. And make sure, as always, you are staying safe out there in this crazy time. Put your mask on, put your gloves on, and be sure to always like, share, subscribe at The Nerds of Color on all your socials, at The Nerds of Color, nerdsofcolor.org. We got new stories dropping all the time. My latest interview with Boston's own Lloyd Lee and his new special Asian Privilege just dropped. You can check that out. And then you'll see my man Kirk Yi with this interview and then hopefully future interviews. So make sure you subscribe 100%. To At The Nerds of Color. And for myself, I am Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange. You can follow me at Temple Far East and at Strange Since 1977 on Twitter and on Instagram. And stay tuned because I'm about to rep Filipino culture with my upcoming podcast that's going to be part of the Hard Knock Media family called The Show Pal Show. It's that Sina Gang Gang, and it's Adult Bros, how we roll in. I'm about to talk about all of us representing within the industry and also help bring light and educate yourselves on Filipino culture and as I learn myself, because again, being raised in America, you don't get all that information. So stay tuned for the Show Power Show. Much love to my man Kirk Yi. Make sure you, again, Monday, you download, purchase, don't illegally download, but you go to iTunes, you go to all those streaming sites and get the Dirty Stereo 2. Show my man Kirk Aztech Yi of the Hybrid Thoughts some love, y'all. And I'm P, Kuya P, and we out of here.
The underground always living, never dying, so surviving, beyond the control. Uptown city life, barricades, bright lights. Devil on his tail for the taste of the nightlife. Uptown city life, barricades, bright lights. Devil
nifty. Sprungs in the tongues of the milky. Borealis, my stratus is the shine beyond the filthy. Corridors of the echoes of the rough that birth the silky. Tapestries of an inner woven casualty. Lightness of the mind is boxed in. Trade with the raveling process. Disguises progress. Fuse what you're adding in. But you just had the dream to manifest and play your part with ciphers in a small city. View the data, collect the art. Sounds, physical objects. Somatic projects. Crystalline tribes still surviving through corruption. Truly obvious. My own style give you
Crowd stands out in the crowd. Things I never learned with pop snarling around. But always brought it down hard. Caught money untaught. Get back when they used to battle for lunch cards. Out on my own, work shares very tight. 50-pound bag of rice to last me many nights. Grind hard to pay rent. Flew back the days when recorded bad demos on the dusty old tapes. Yeah.